Hello, Ricky Hatton here. Just remember to subscribe and like. Triple B, Base Boxing Basement. Do yourself a favour. I love Triple B. If I come in and go in the bedroom and find a wife in bed with Triple B, I'd tuck him in. Yeah, shalom, peoples. Now, yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, your channel, you're such a hater, you're so salty, you must be so angry and jealous in it. I mean, firstly, just because, I'm exposing these people. I made it clear in the description and all the time that I'm exposing wrong-uns. So, of course, there's going to be some bitterness. And, obviously I'm trying to be funny. So, you need to inject some humour, and piss taking is the best form of humour. And as for the, you're so bitter, you're so jealous of Sonny Edwards, innit? I mean, that kind of projection is just a joke, man. Yeah, I don't like someone, I put them in their place, yeah? I rinse them, and that means that I want to be them. What kind of, like, messed up, retarded psychology? And why would I want to be 8 stone, yeah? Ugly, butt-tooth, balding, yeah? And, deluded and ramping up some a female cruiserweight. Anyway, enough about Edwards. I don't want to talk about the Schmeagle. So what, I don't just want to rinse people out. I've got a heart. I got a big heart, man. Sometimes I worry how it can fit in my rib cage, So I'm not just about the haterism. I got to talk about other stuff too. I want to, expand and talk about, some boxers that I like and what they've achieved, and, and talk about other subjects, which I do. So I thought I'd talk about something more interesting than just slating Sonny Edwards or Ben Shalom. But they're getting it. I would never stop slating them clowns, obviously. But I was thinking about, drug addiction, and alcoholism in boxing, because, there's a lot of it going on, full stop, but definitely, like, if you look at, like, MMA fighters and boxers, because they are high-risk sports, really, extreme sports, they seem to have more than its fair share of drug addicts, with football and that, there's always a few alcoholics, like Merson and Kenny Sampson, who was sleeping on the bench. But, considering the number of famous footballers there are not that many, hardcore pissheads, or especially not really drug addicts, They might have a sniff now and then, but it's not, considering how high profile football is, you don't get nearly as many, degenerate drug addicts. But, so I thought I'd just, I just picked them out of my head as I speak, the guys that like their sniff or other drugs, and the guys that like their get their drink on. So, it's a UK sort of based channel. And, one of the biggest names of recent times that love the sniff, and get the drink on is obviously Tyson Fury. Now, Tyson went on like 2.5 year binge. He put on 10 stone, all the time, getting his drink on, getting his sniff on, But, he was probably, when he was high, he was probably having a good time, because everyone would go up to him, and hang out with him. Yes, Tyson, and buy him drinks. But they messed him up. You can see he has a tendency for depression, and he thinks a lot, and so all the come downs would have been terrible. And we know his mental health, was compromised, which is not surprising, because Tyson's a big man, so he's throwing back a lot of drink, sniffing up a lot of ting, to get high. And everyone will want to buy him drinks, like Gascoigne, Talking to footballers, Gascoigne obviously took things to the extreme, man, and he lost his mechanism though. He's mad as a hatter, a box of frogs. But Tyson, didn't go that fast. He managed to reclaim, his mental health, and keep his faculties. But obviously he's younger, so he concentrated on the boxing. Well done to him, I thought he was maybe gang stalked a bit. What that means is when, it's a bit of a controversial concept, but when you get like, like the powers that be, the globalists, the people that run things, I talk about them a lot, they want to destroy someone, so they kind of, and intimidate them, so they'll send people around to do weird stuff, like photograph them and stuff like that, hang out near the house, stare at them, we will just do their heads in. But also, more than that, if they're guys that like to go out, to hang around them, you know, encourage them to get on the drink and the sniff. I don't think that's completely unlikely, because, you know, after they didn't want Tyson Fury to become champion, right? Because he was like, he's like the anti-Illuminati. He's had brought out videos on them, showing them up, you know, and they persecuted him, you know. They stripped him of his title quickly. They refused to put him on that stupid show no one cares about. Sports lack of personality, you know. They always get these boring people like Tom Daly and or the horse-faced royal, what's her name, Zara, whatever. People like that, you know. It's pathetic. A pathetic show to push the agendas. There was some ginger guy there. And I like ginger people, so I'm not hating on ginger people. Yeah, they're warriors, but there's a ginger guy who was a triple jumper, Greg Rutherford. Yeah, and he's like, oh, it's disgusting. Tyson is a homophobe, an anti-Semite, and a transphobe. What is that lame labels that just made up to smear people, yeah, and keep them from talking the truth, you know. So that happened to Tyson, but yeah, you know, and he even cheated on his wife, you know, Paris, which is a shame because she's obviously a good mother. She's had loads of kids and looks after the caravans. Yeah, gets the food on at the right time. This kind of thing is respectable. You know, she doesn't nag him. She understands Tyson got a big job. Yeah, and he's a complex man. She's a good wife to him. But even that, he ended up cheating on some bird, brought her back to the caravan. Yeah, smashed her. She said he was very traditional in how he rumped her. I respect that, because that means Tyson ain't watching sick porn all the time, which would destroy a man, corrupt a man's mind, and take them onto sickness like Lee Wood and orgies and getting your pals to smash your love of your life while you're watching. What kind of disgustingness is that? I tell you what it is. It's the porno industry and, you know, the so-called entertainment industry. You know, things like Sex in the City. They like to corrupt the women. That's how they do it. Yeah, slowly but surely. Yeah, you know, back in the day, if you had a film, yeah, and you had a woman sit on the bed next to the man, she had to have both feet on the ground. If she had one foot off the ground, it meant that was a euphemism for she was going to rump him. Yeah, and that was considered controversial. Or Elvis Presley swinging his hips. Then what, 50 years later, you know, bit more, you know, mans are like cuckolding in front of them with their best friend, busting nuts, getting a best friend to bust nut in front of the love of their life. In the old days, someone stares at your woman too long, you got up and have a word. You go, what you looking at? What are you looking at my bird for? Yeah? And it's a fight. Yeah? And now you got guys going on the internet, yeah, trying to get other men to smash their wife. Now you know that isn't normal. Yeah? Yeah? It's anti-science, it's anti-religion, it's anti-family values, it's anti-culture, it's sick. But even Tyson was corrupted by the drugs and so on, and ended up rumping up this bird who predictably went to the papers. Yeah, probably a bit of a setup, you know. She was probably encouraged by the elitists to do it, but all she wanted the money. He smashed her in a normal way. And then he in the caravan, and then he made her a nice sandwich, which I think is quite sweet. So yeah, Tyson, you know, I think he goes to extremes. He's the kind of guy who like either goes nuts or doesn't really do much. But good on him. He's managed to hit it on the head. Even though he'll have a drink, I'm sure he'll have a little sniff once in a while. But he got back down. He got right with God, yeah, and his family are important. So good on him, Tyson. And from one Tyson to the next Tyson, Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson, the original man. You know, it's a great story, isn't it? That Tyson Fury is called Tyson because of Mike Tyson. People say his name's Luke or whatever. It doesn't matter. His middle name, at the minimum, is definitely Tyson. He's known as Tyson. So, you know, don't be stupid, man. It's a great name. I remember when I saw that name, I was like, I can't believe it. When he was a junior in amateurs, Tyson Fury, I thought, this is just the best name ever. I expect him to be black, to be honest, but, you know. But the Iron Mike Tyson, yeah. Now, I read his book, yeah. It's... do you know what? It's real depressing, to be honest, because it doesn't even talk that much about boxing. It just talks about what a dysfunctional, degenerate lifestyle he had. Now, you know, it's not easy for him, Mike Tyson, because he didn't know his dad. His mother was a prostitute. Yeah, there's an interview I saw in him today, and he's like, you know, from a young age, I'd heard it all. I'd seen it all, the violence, the theft. She goes, you know, I used to hear my mother being fucked in the bedroom when I was watching TV or something like that. You know, it's like... he was exposed to stuff like that. He smoked weed from the age of 10. Yeah, he's obviously got a nice soft spot in him because he likes the animals with his pigeons. He used to be known as Bummy Mike, according to Riddick Bowe, and people just avoid him. And he was a loner. Someone hurt his pigeon, he smashed him up. So I like that story. I don't like animal abusers. Jerry McLennan, can sit there shitting himself. Good, yeah. Imagine how many animals and who knows, maybe humans eventually. Yeah, we've been saved by the fact he was vegetabilized by Nigel Benn. So I agree with that. That's good. But Tyson was exposed to, weed. Yeah, weed. It's not that bad in the sense that it doesn't really mess you up as much as other substances. So that people say if you start early, it messes with your psychology as you're growing. Also, cocaine, he was doing it in his book, it's just all about him shagging loads of women, including disgusting orgies, hookers, doing so much Charlie. I didn't realize how much Charlie he did, and from an early time as well. Once he split it up with what's his face, who's that trainer, Kevin Rooney and that kind of thing. He just went off the rails. He was barely on the rails anyway. He used to go down from who's a paedophile, Customato's house, and jump up to New York and go to the streets. Probably sick of getting noshed off by Custer Predator D'Amato. So Tyson, a big history of drug abuse and drink. He loved to get his drink on too. No wonder he's a bit crazy. He had a dysfunctional upbringing from a young age. Like he's seen it all. Like he said, he's a bit chill now, and he seems to only smoke puff. But there was an article a few years ago saying he was so alcoholic he was on the verge of death. I don't know. He's reined that in. He's got some cannabis company and stuff, and he's always stoned on his show. I don't think a man like Tyson will ever be clean. When he's so damaged, you want to get away. But the modern Mike Tyson, and he talks well, Tyson. He's not educated traditionally, but he's got a brain. Yeah, and he's been treated badly even when he was the money man. By his wife, skit of a wife. Also pumped full of the antidepressant drugs. The pharmaceutical industry is so corrupt, and they even invent, or at least encourage doctors to diagnose a variety of mental issues so they can push their pharmaceuticals on you. They're not trying to cure nothing. They're trying to treat it so you carry on buying their pills. I know a woman, Now, she was 35 and diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she had a couple of kids. And they said, the doctors, look, we can probably keep you alive for 2 years, something like that, And she's like, okay, well, that's not great. And then she researched natural ways to conquer cancer. And she's like, you know what? Even if it doesn't work, at least I'll be a bit healthier. The chemotherapy will destroys your body. You get all kinds of boils and stuff. Your hair falls out. You don't feel right. You feel ill all the time. Yeah. And so she's like, yeah, all right, you know what? I'm not going to do that. She looked into it. There's some kind of, it's all to do with diet, right? You have to avoid certain things like the plague, sugars especially. Obviously anything processed with chemicals and all that, pesticides, aspartame, all that kind of nonsense. But there's a certain foodstuffs you've got to eat. I don't know what they are because I haven't got cancer, so I haven't looked into it really. But it's like there's a certain alkalinity level you need to get your body on. And she defeated it. She's now 50 years old. She looks 35 years old. Yeah. So all this, the pharmaceutical industry is one of the biggest sickening frauds of all time. It's there to make you ill and keep you ill, but make the money. So yeah, Tyson seems on a decent level, His cannabis and stuff, and he's quite chilled out and quite philosophical. I think he probably spends too much time stoned, but whatever, man. It's like, who am I to judge? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I don't think he does the white anymore. I don't know about a bit of drink, probably a bit, but he doesn't do the white. The white is probably, apart from the brown, the white is probably the worst drug, and people should be more aware of that because they think it's a bit of a laugh with a drink. Before you know it, man, every time they're going out, they got to sniff out. They got to sniff things every time, and then they start sniffing every day just to function, man. I know a lot of man it went to that pretty quickly, You know what? Yeah, I think I'm going to have to break this up into a number of episodes because I've already got about 20 people written down I want to talk about, But and it's very, very interesting. There are a lot of guys being affected by drinking drugs in the boxing world. But so, let's find a guy on my list. So we've got like Ricky Hatton, a.k.a. Richard Hatton, when he started boxing. Now, Hatton, obviously one of his main problems was the drink. That was the main one. Now, when he was early on in his career, he used to fight often like people do, So he wouldn't have the chance to get really out of shape because Hatton's one of them guys that when he hasn't got a fight, he's not training at all. He's fat. He's got all them kind of, not boils, he's got them kind of the herpes virus on his face. It's always kind of like, them sores around his mouth. And, he ain't no oil painting, is he, Hatton? So, when he's fat and got sores all over his face, it's not a good look. But obviously he's got the wallet. So if your wallet's thick enough, it doesn't matter. You still get pum-pum. And then Hatton used to drink a lot between fights. As I said early on, he always used to do this stupid Ricky, he'll love a bit of a party. He used to do what's it called, the old, the bad shirt drink up competition, and every day after a fight he'd go to his local and they would wear bad shirts. Actually, he's such a comedian, Ricky. Ricky. You know what Ricky says? He says, if I come back home and I find Mike Tyson in bed with my wife, I'd tuck him in. Yeah, funny one, Rick, you clown. But I quite like Ricky when he was young. It's only since he retired and became a world champion he started to go off the rails. I mean, I always liked his style, and he didn't look, he was so pale, but he wouldn't necessarily tag him as a fighter. Yeah, you tag him as a little chavvy. But he was a good, exciting fighter, Nice body shots. I always like a body shot. But so Ricky, as he got on with his career, the fights maybe twice a year. And then there's big breaks between the fights. And so he's spending 3 months on the piss every day and eating food. He come in at training camp at 14.5 stone. He's got to get down to 10 stone. The whole training camp is now spent losing the weight. Okay, of course they work on tactics, and that's draining on your body. Yeah, which is why he got, he did. I think he underachieved in a way. Yeah. Although I believe he was, I'm not saying robbed, but they made it impossible for him to beat Mayweather, the ref and all that, because he was giving Mayweather a hard time. And actually he had the style to give Mayweather a hard time. I don't buy all that stuff. Oh, he never had a chance, Ricky. Definitely did. You watched the early part of the fight and he's troubling Mayweather, but the referee doesn't let him fight his inside game. I think it was, who's that black referee? I don't know. Richard Steele. Is it Richard Steele? I think, and it was just ridiculous. They let Mayweather get away with everything, like ducking under the waist, leaning back on the ropes, elbows in the face. But Ricky, when he's in range, they'll just break it up. It's pathetic, man. But anyway, Ricky, I don't know what he was doing, Charlie, when he was fighting. Probably, certainly near the end. But drink was mainly his problem. Then he got into the Charlie. Yeah, and he's been photographed by some scat sniffing up. Yeah, it was on the front of the News of the World or whatever it's called, The Sun. He ended up cheating on his wife. But, I'm bothered about that because the wife is a gold digger, She's a pretty girl, about 3 inches taller than Hatton. She's only with Hatton because he's got a cash money bag. She wouldn't touch him with a shitty stick. Yeah, if it was just a normal man. And that must get on Hatton's mind because he's going there, he's going, hey Jennifer, how you doing, Mrs. Hatton? But he knows, she doesn't really want to rump him up and all that, she knows that she's just opening the legs because it's her duty, and she knows that it will get her hands on Ricky Hatton's bag. Yeah, I mean, and that was someone he married. I mean, imagine having that kind of life. I'd rather marry an ordinary looking girl who's sweet and loves me, than some skank like Jennifer Dooley. Yeah, and also, but I don't know whether Mike Tyson ever shagged Jennifer Dooley. Yeah, but Ricky would have tucked him in bed allegedly if he had. So there you go. Hatton's, and he started going a bit mad on the drugs, and he's obviously, drink is his main thing. He's fat, pink now. He does weird stuff like dresses up in women's underwear with a gimp mask. I don't think that's funny. You know, he's got a son. He should act with a bit more dignity. His son's a clown anyway. You know, he's full of himself, a cocky little prick, and he can't fight. Yeah, and that guy got robbed. You know, but I quite like watching Campbell Hatton fight because I know there's a good chance of him getting a beat down, and then I can enjoy that. So, yeah, you know what? But Hatton, he's obviously still in the drink. He's got endless pictures of him with huge fry-ups and drinking beer. But you know what? I'm not a total hater of his. He disappoints me. But, you know, you know, hopefully he won't get back on the white. And I do think he should be a bit healthier, you know, because, you know, he's got a grandkid now, you know, a granddad. You know, you wanna see that kid grow up. You know, so yeah, he should take care of himself a little bit more. The fat, red-faced, you know, he gorges, don't he? Gorges, loves his food, loves his beer, loves to get his sniff on. But yeah, hopefully he'll stay away from the sniff. Okay, let's have a look. Kirkland Lang. Now, Kirkland Lang, what was he called? The Enigma, you know? He boxed there with his hands low. Really unusual style. He beat Roberto Duran, although Roberto wasn't, you know, didn't take that fight serious. And Lang did for once, yeah. Because Kirkland Lang's big problem was he was a Rasta, and he liked to get his weed on and his smoke on, yeah. But also he liked to drink with it. And he would do it all the time during training and so on, you know. He could not discipline himself. People say it's a waste of talent. Well, you know, to be successful in anything, in a sport or anything, you've got to have the right mentality as well. Of course, if you've got talent, you can get far, but like, you know, you imagine how much, you know, if Gascoigne and George Best had Ronaldo's obsession, you know, with perfection, then they would have been at his level and at Messi's level. Excuse me, but they love the drink, and that's fine, you know. Well, I also like Gascoigne, he loved a sniff, and it made him go nuts. Kirkland Lang, his things, yeah, with a herb, yeah, and you like Stella. Now, he died last year, God rest his soul. I think he fell off a balcony or something. He was 63. He would never, you know, it sounds awful, but he was never going to live that old because of his lifestyle. You know, I think he blew all his money, ended up in hostels and stuff like that. It's quite sad, but you know what? And everyone should have you know, be able to get some help and some agencies. But you know, if someone don't want to do it, some people love the seediness, yeah, of that lifestyle anyway. But you know, you can't force anyone, and it's got to be within someone, you know, to make them changes, as Michael Jackson said. You know, like the man in the mirror. Yeah, you got to make that change. Yeah, you got to look in the mirror and make that change. Kirkland didn't do that. You know, he loved to get his drink on a smoke. I mean, people say, "Oh, a waste of talent." Well, you know what? He boxed Colin Jones twice. Colin Jones knocked him out both times. Yeah, and both times I remember he trained. He abstained from drink and weed and trained really hard, but he still got knocked out. Unfortunately, Jones was a big puncher, and he caught his chin. I like Jones, by the way. He retired at only 24, if you believe that. He's a ginger guy as well. And so I think after that, I spoke, you know, I think when his manager said after that, he never trained that hard again, you know. You know, but he still achieved quite a lot, you know. And I don't think he was ever, yes, in the modern times, would he be world champion? Yeah, he'd have a chance for sure. But he never would be one of the greats, you know. He's like, or a lot of them fighters that drop their hands, and Engle fighters, they look super against average guys or guys a level below them, Witter, people like that. They bang these guys out, humiliate them, look punch perfect, hardly get hit. But once they start meeting guys who are real top level, they look sloppy themselves, and they get schooled, like Hamed Barrera, stuff like that. Yeah, so I think that's kind of thing that would have happened to Lang. He got knocked out a few times, including by Buck Smith, who was like a sort of journeyman type, but virgin on world class. But he had a punch. So Kirkland Lang, yeah, you know, the weed, the drink, and I remember there's this, you know, that fat pig, Steve Bunce, with his stupid Hawaiian shirt. So he's gone up to, I can't stand that Big Daddy Bunce. People that give themselves nicknames always whack and stuff. No, you can't give yourself a nickname, yeah? Yeah? Like, okay, maybe unless it's a boxing alias, it's, other people have to choose your nickname. Suddenly start referring to yourself as the Big Daddy. What a plum. And I don't need to start talking about the Ugandan hookers when he made them all bend over and put biros in their batty holes, took pictures. That's the kind of man Bunce is. And so he went up to see Kirkland, yeah, and he likes to try and be edgy, Buncey. So he brought him some Stellas, and he sat down on a park bench drinking Stellas like a bunch of hobos. I mean, some people would say you shouldn't encourage an addict. I mean, on the other hand, I think that's self-righteous. I mean, listen. If Kirkland wants to get Stella on, then let him, But yeah, I mean, I don't like Bunce anyway. He probably thought you'd get a better interview if he gets Kirkland to knock back a few Stellas, So he's a scumbag, Bunce. And I rinse him as well. He's going to get rinsed too. But yeah, Kirkland Lang, it's a shame. Obviously he died too young. He was an enigma, but was he ruined by drugs and drink? He would have done better, certainly, But as I said, with the Colin Jones fights, he trained as hard as possible, cleanly, and he still got ironed out. So I think he's still a level below the top boys. Right, and that's the end of this episode 1 of the drunken drug addict degenerates. I think I'll probably do about 3 of these. So we'll see you episode 2 for more drink and drug tomfoolery.